from the UFC just then. We've got a whole stacked lineup of fights announced for UFC 291, with the main event being Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier 2, co-main event Alex Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz, Paulo Costa is fighting Ikram Aliskerov as well, and many other fights which we're going to be going over in this video. Starting off with Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier 2. This is an amazing fight, something we've been all asking for, and we're going to get it as a 5 round main event of this pay-per-view, UFC 291 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Don't know what else to say really. It's a great matchup. Like two lightweights, two violent lightweights, number 2 and 3 in the world, is going to be an absolute war. We saw the first fight. We know what happened. Dustin Poirier got the finish, but it was a highly competitive fight and something that definitely needed to be run back, and that's what we're getting. If you watch the first fight, obviously, Poirier won by a TKO, but Justin Gaethje was having much success with the leg kicks as well, landing good punches as well. He had Poirier hurt, both had each other hurt. Really, it was a war. But obviously, since then, Justin Gaethje's made many improvements in his fighting style. It's become a lot more technical and doesn't just swing for the fences as much as he used to. We saw that in the Rafael Fiziev fight recently at UFC 286. He was outboxing Fiziev and won a pretty straightforward decision, which was very impressive to see from him. Obviously, he'd been criticised a bit for not fighting down the rankings, and not really taking on the up and coming competition. So he did that, and he obviously came away with a win. So credit to him for that. And then on the other hand, you got Dustin Poirier, similar sort of boat. You got like both former interim champions, lost to Khabib, lost to Charles Oliveira, have won pretty much everything else in the recent years. Obviously, Poirier had the 2 wins over Conor, lost to Charles, took a year layoff, beat Michael Chandler in a fight which he was, let's be honest, probably losing. But now he's making a return and he's going to be fighting Justin Gaethje. Great matchup, really. This is absolutely great stuff from the UFC. Announced it just after Francis Ngannou obviously made his announcement to the PFL, and the UFC is just like, all right, you want to make an announcement? We'll make ours as well. And they absolutely smashed it out of the park. This fight obviously is a 5 rounder. I think slightly would benefit Justin Gaethje. Obviously he does train at Colorado in elevation. This fight's Salt Lake City, Utah. Last time we saw the UFC there was obviously Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 2 at UFC 278, and pretty much every fighter except for Kamaru Usman looked compromised because of the altitude, looked gassed out. Even Leon Edwards, you saw in the co-main, Rockhold and Costa both looked gassed. Everyone else on the card really struggled with the altitude. And obviously for Gaethje, training at altitude, it's going to make his life a lot easier. I think he's probably got slightly the better cardio, I would say. If you're looking at the style, Poirier with the boxing advantage, probably the speed advantage, the combinations. Gaethje's obviously got the power, as we saw. Poirier kind of won that first fight based on really just landing the cleaner shots when Gaethje was just swinging. Poirier was brawling, but technically. And obviously you saw Gaethje got clipped, and it wasn't one shot that just put him out. It was those combos that Poirier can get going, when he's got you hurt against the fence and you'll be shelling up and he's just landing everywhere. We saw it against Conor in the second fight. TKO'd him. He's one of the scariest guys to have in front of you when you're hurt, and that obviously has been shown in the Gaethje fight, the Conor fight, other fights as well. Looking towards that end of the first round against Michael Chandler last November, it was piecing him up at the end of the first, banging his head into the cage. Looked like it could have almost been stopped, busted up Chandler's nose, but obviously Chandler made it to the second round and made a comeback before getting submitted in the third. But yeah, when you're looking at this fight, I think Gaethje's going to have a lot of success with the leg kicks that he did in the first fight. We saw that. He beat up Poirier's legs. Saw after the fight, Poirier said Gaethje tore his quad. He said that was the hardest leg kicker that he's faced, and he's faced pretty much the who's who at lightweight. And he said Gaethje was the guy that he was hitting him, and he just was not a fan of it, did not like it one bit. So in this fight, obviously Gaethje will know to go to that straight away and keep on it. But I think Poirier is obviously the more technical fighter, we'd have to say. But Gaethje just looked so impressive against Rafael Fiziev in his recent fight in London. He obviously tough first round. Fiziev had the speed. He was kicking him in the legs, kicking him in the body, going up high with the kicks and landing some good jabs, some good punches. But Gaethje really showed his experience in that fight and why he's just still that number 3 ranked guy, and he's been in the top 5 of the lightweight division for so long. He rallied back, landed, and was really hurting a gassed out, tired, hurt Fiziev in the third and late in the second. He was landing those uppercuts. He was really landing those uppercuts. That's one of Gaethje's best punches going into this fight, I believe. Poirier does go with that Philly shell, that sort of boxing kind of guard, which can get him in trouble sometimes as well. You see it with guys like Peter Yan too. That high guard sometimes causes them issues, and it might, if Gaethje can really, instead of just swinging at will and just trying to knock his head off, if Gaethje really starts putting those combinations together when he gets him hurt or against the fence, if he lands one shot, I believe he has the ability to hurt Dustin with one shot more than Dustin does to him. Obviously, Poirier still incredibly powerful, incredibly precise striker, but that one punch and you drop power is clearly with Gaethje on this one. So really, it's a hard fight to predict. I'm just glad we're getting it. Fans are glad we're getting it. It's a fight that we've all been asking for. We wanted to see it. We were thinking we might be getting it as a co-main event of a pay-per-view, maybe 3 rounds, maybe a 5 round co-main event. We get it as a 5 round main event of a pay-per-view, which absolutely no one is complaining about. No one disputes that at all because it's just a great fight. These two guys, former title challengers, two of the biggest names in the division. And so we're going to see that one go down on July 29th in Utah. For my early prediction for this fight, I'll go slight lean to Justin Gaethje. I think he's been the one to make more improvements since the first fight, which was a few years ago. Obviously, before Gaethje had the Ferguson fight, before both of them fought Habib. Obviously, Gaethje in that Ferguson fight really refined his style. We saw that mid-fight adjustment where he just started taking off a lot of the power off his shots and really just trying to land against Ferguson, and he had great success. He was beating up Ferguson for the majority of that fight. Saw it again. He was having success against Oliveira before he got put down and submitted. He won that first round against Habib in most people's eyes. Habib said that he was the hardest hitter that he'd faced as well. Seems to be a pretty common theme. Then obviously he had that fight of the year with Michael Chandler, which he won by decision. Looked very impressive in that fight. Obviously a tough first round, but in that second and third, again, that uppercut that he almost finished Chandler with in midway through the second, really does show to be one of his best punches. Really doesn't wind it up as much as he used to. Really just precisely lands that uppercut on the chin. And I could see him doing that against Poirier, maybe finishing him, maybe dropping him in the fight. I'm going to go with Justin Gaethje via a 4th round TKO due to leg kicks and punches, just combinations, and he just drops, similar to what we saw Poirier finish Gaethje with in the first fight. That's how I see that fight going, but just glad that's such a good fight. Main event, definitely. This card looks great as well. Second card in July, obviously Volkanovski, Rodriguez, and now we got this at the end of the month, July 29th. It's a great main event. For the BMF title, guess Masvidal retired. They're like, all right, we might keep it going. It kind of had a bit of a build up, obviously, with Nate Diaz, bit anticlimactic in the finish, but Masvidal won that belt. Probably should have lost it when he lost his next 3 fights to Usman, Covington, Burns. But anyway, it is what it is. And if it's going to be back, if we're going to get this BMF title thing again, then these are the two guys really that you're going to put it for. These two, they're the only two really non-champions that you could. They're the guys that you really look at and say, yeah, they're the BMF. You got guys like Holloway as well, Gilbert Burns, Vicente Luque, all those kind of guys. But two in the same division, these two are the guys. So I really don't mind it. Moving on to the co-main event of the card, we've got Alex Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight. There's a 3 month turnaround for Alex Pereira since he obviously got knocked out by Adesanya at UFC 287. Um, it's a tough fight. It's a good fight, and obviously, pretty obviously going to be a number 1 contender once the winner of Jamal Hill and Yuri Prohaska happens. That's looking like September, maybe October, November. But the winner of this fight pretty much guarantees a title shot next. I don't think anyone else makes sense. Like, no one else is booked in that top 5. So the winner here is looking at a title shot. In terms of the fight, Jan Blachowicz, obviously the guy to beat Adesanya in the UFC before Pereira at light heavyweight when Izzy moved up and tried to become double champion. Looked very impressive in that fight, really kind of stifled Izzy's attacks and made him look not that great. Well, not great, but he really kind of put him down and just like held him down, used the wrestling, showed really good defensive abilities in that fight as well. Really didn't get hit ridiculously clean by Izzy, didn't really get hurt in that fight. Believe it was a pretty clear 3-2 or 4-1 for Jan from memory. Yeah, so that was very impressive from Jan. Obviously, since then, when that happened, Pereira was not in the UFC. Since then, we've obviously seen Alex Pereira's fast track to the title shot. He obviously beat Strickland and then TKO'd Izzy in the 5th before losing the rematch at UFC 287 by KO. Pereira is a massive guy at middleweight, so it's really no surprise. After the Israel fight, we all kind of knew that he'd be moving up. Makes sense for him to chase a fight with the winner of Jamal Hill versus Yuri Prohaska, both of which are quite favourable matchups for him, in my opinion. I think he would beat both of those guys in a tough fight, but I think he would win by KO against both of them. Jan Blachowicz, however, it's a much harder fight. Jan's more well-rounded. He's got, obviously, extremely good striking. I think he's one of the most underrated strikers in the sport, let alone definitely the most at light heavyweight. Showed, obviously, in the Ankalaev fight at 282. Obviously, Ankalaev's not known for his striking, but really showed very good striking in that first 3 rounds before he got taken down. He was busting up Jan, busting up Ankalaev with leg kicks. It was Jan, Ankalaev was on wobbly legs from leg kicks, not even the punches were the concern. He was kicking him, he was going shin to shin with him as well, which was crazy to see. And Ankalaev looked like a few more of those could have finished him, to be honest. Obviously, in the Izzy fight, I think is where we're going to get our best comparisons from as well. Obviously, in that Izzy fight with Blachowicz, Blachowicz showed quite good leg kicking defense. He checked a lot of the leg kicks, and obviously with those steel shins that he's got, that's going to be a problem for anyone. Pereira, obviously, heavily reliant game upon the leg kicks, which we saw him have great success in both of the Izzy fights. The first one and then the second one before he got finished, he was hurting Izzy. Izzy said it as well. Said he was really struggling with those leg kicks, but I see Jan checking them a lot more. I think his style, his stance makes that easier to do, and I think he's just developed that ability, which is a very, very good ability, very useful ability to have when you're fighting those kickboxing guys. Obviously, guys like Glover, Ankalaev, Rockhold aren't kicking the legs as much, but in against those kickboxers against Adesanya and Pereira, that's going to be a really good tool to have. In terms of the striking, the boxing, both of them incredibly powerful. Alex Pereira has that left hook from hell, knocks almost everyone out with it. Blachowicz as well, Polish powers are a real thing. He knocks a lot of guys out, hurts them on the feet. Saw it with obviously Rockhold, many others. Lands that left. He's got that left as well, so it's almost going to be a battle of the left hooks. Whoever lands first, obviously, I can see the 3 month turnaround for Alex being a problem. 3 months from being flatline KO'd like he was, it's more of 3.5 months, but still, that's a quick turnaround. Obviously, Alex moving up weight is a discussion as well. 20 pounds less to cut. he's really draining himself down to middleweight. And obviously, he said it himself in his kickboxing days, he found it so much more comfortable, and he really expressed that light heavyweight was his best weight class. So would not be surprised at all if he comes back looking really good, looks good at light heavyweight. It doesn't really need a bulking period. He's massive. He walks around at 230 pounds. So the size I don't see being an issue. He could honestly be bigger, maybe stronger than Blachowicz, but I'd say the physicality with the wrestling probably is that advantage is lying with Jan. I can see him going to that in this fight. Obviously, he took down Izzy with pretty decent success in their fight, controlled him in the fifth to secure that win and defend his title. Obviously, Pereira, relatively new, only 6 or 7 fights. I believe it's 7 fights in MMA. Only a few of those, only 5 in the UFC. 4 or 5 in the UFC, and obviously even Izzy was able to take him down and make Alex look very average in the grappling, in the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling departments. So if Pereira hasn't sorted that out with Glover training over there at Glover MMA and Fitness, to share MMA and Fitness, then I can see that really being a problem for him. Obviously, Jan could just, it depends really. Jan can have success just standing with him, but also could, if he really needs to, and he feels like that's his way to victory, could honestly have very good success with the takedowns. So for this fight, prediction, I'm going to go Jan Blachowicz by a 29-28 decision. I'll say Pereira wins the first. I think he might drop or wobble Jan with that left, or maybe the cross or an uppercut. One of those big punches, maybe against the fence. But I see after that, I think obviously at elevation as well. I'm not saying either of them are more conditions than the other, but that wrestling cardio is a much more of a different cardio to the striking cardio. So I really think Jan will bite down on the mouthpiece and just go, screw this. I'm not standing with you. I'm not risking this. And just really push that wrestling. And obviously, Jan's going to be able to grapple for longer. That's a pretty safe bet to say. So I think he'll be taking him down frequently in the second and third. Have a bit of success on the feet as well, kicking Pereira's legs as well. Still Aliskerov kicked Pereira's legs a few times in their fights. And I think he'll have success with that, and I think he'll win a decision. So yeah, I'm taking Jan on that fight. Moving on to the third fight on the card, we got Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliskerov. It's one that not many people saw coming, way out of left field here. Ikram obviously coming off that debut fight, debut knockout win in the first round over Phil Hawes, who, let's be honest, isn't the top of middleweight competition, not even really that outside the rankings kind of guy. He's pretty low level in terms of the middleweights, but nonetheless, it was a very impressive KO from Ikram. Obviously, Costa hasn't fought since last August, where he obviously beat Luke Rockhold. But let's be honest, it's not really an impressive win. He didn't look that good in the fight. Gassed out, like, didn't look at his best. I think Costa's really started to. My prediction for this fight, I'm leaning Ikram, to be honest. I'm leaning Ikram Aliskerov. And my thought process there is more based off. I'm not. It's not so much that I'm buying into the hype that I think he's the next world champion, that he'll beat everyone just because he fought Hamzat. Obviously, we know he lost to Hamzat outside the UFC, but gave him a tough fight. I just think I've seen a few of his fights outside the UFC, obviously, in those other promotions, like where he fought Hamzat, and he's he's a good striker. He's got very good sambo skills. Obviously, he defended all of Hamzat's takedowns, or pretty much all of them, and he's got knockout power, as we saw against Phil Hawes. He's got other knockouts in his career, obviously. Lost to Hamzat, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's Hamzat Chimaev. Guy's a killer as well, and he was in talks to fight Costa, but I guess Costa was also going to fight Whitaker back in February in Perth. Turned that down. I guess this is either, there's two options here really. This is either the UFC's way of getting back at Costa and saying, all right, screw you. You turned down Rob. Maybe you turned down Hamzat. We don't know. And if he did, they're saying, all right, we're going to use you as you can prove your ranking. You have not, Costa has 0 wins over ranked competition, 0 wins over active fighters, I believe, which is crazy. And he's ranked number 5 in the world. So they're saying, defend your spot, prove that you're still here. This guy's a prospect. This guy had a close fight with Khamzat Chimaev. You beat him, you're good. You can fight Khamzat, you can fight Strickland, you can fight Whitaker, you can fight Cannonier, Vittori, any of those top guys. But first, you got to prove yourself. I think it's probably a similar kind of thing with that pushing of the prospect that they're doing, obviously, with Abbas Magomedov against Sean Strickland, right next to each other in the rankings, Strickland and Costa. But I think with this fight, again, as I said, I'm going to go Ikram Aliskerov. I'm going to go by a third round's TKO. I think Costa is at that stage in his career, I think, post Adesanya fight. He lost to Adesanya. He lost to Vittori. He didn't look good against Rockhold. He turned down Whitaker, I think wisely. I think he knew he wouldn't win that fight. So I think he's at that stage in his career where I think he saw the easy fight, he saw the Vittori fight, and he's like, I'm not in the top level. I'm not that guy. I'm not him in that top 5 that's going to win the belt. I'm not at the stage in the career anymore when I'm upcoming. He passed his prime, his peak, his like period where he was improving and everyone was high on him was obviously the like Romero, that kind of era going into the title fight with Izzy. But since then, 1 win over an old Luke Rockhold who, let's be honest, we all expected Costa to smoke him and KO him in the first round, which he didn't do. He made it look like a very average fight, made it a scrap. It was great to watch, not a technical fight, not a high-level skill fight. It looked like, if I'm being honest, 2 unranked guys fighting. Like, it was amazing to watch. It was fucking great to watch. But, just didn't look that good. Like, Rockhold was landing body kicks. I think Ikram can go to that as well. I think Costa, I think he knows. And he's at that stage in his career where he's like, I'm a name more than a top contender. I'm a name more than a top contender. I'm like, I think he's spending all this time on his page. He's a fucking funny guy. Like, the memes are amazing. We all love it. But I think he's not in that grind mindset of just work to the title. Like, I think Whitaker has that just different mentality. I think not only is Whitaker better than him, but I think Whitaker's just got that mentality. I think those other guys that still have lost to Izzy or had losses at the top are like, all right, let me get back, let me improve, let me get in the gym, work every day, and get back to that shot and prove to myself that I'm still there. And I think Costa didn't really have that motivation. I think the Rockhold fight, he didn't look that good. I don't think, like, he's spending more time, I think, he's spending more time on his Twitter than he's training, which, as good as it is for our entertainment in terms of the memes and the social media and the call outs, which don't lead to anything. See, he called out Blachowicz for the May card. Blachowicz is now going to be fighting above him in the co-main against Pereira. That didn't happen. And I think Ikram, though, however, he's that guy. Like, I see him, even if he loses this fight, he's in the top 10 in the next year and a half. I think we see Ikram in the top 10. I think we see Abbas Magomedov in the top 10. Even if he loses to Strickland as well. I think those Dagestani guys, they've just got a different mentality. There isn't any of them that take their career in any other way. They are to the title. That's their goal. Inshallah. That's what they want. So I think Ikram's going to win. I think even if Costa is a better striker, I think Ikram's going to be better conditioned. I think Ikram's going to be taking this camp more seriously. I think Costa might see Ikram as an unranked guy. Haha, this guy lost to Gourmet Sheshen, as he says, like, won't care that much. He'll be more focused on Pereira or Blachowicz or Khamzat in the build-up than his actual opponent. And I think that'll cost him. I think he won't be conditioned again. I don't think he's going to learn. He doesn't seem like the guy to learn from that mistake in the first fight. At altitude, obviously, Rockhold gassed out. Still won, clearly, but that's just because Rockhold's got no chin. So, yeah, Ikram Aliskerov, third rounds TKO or a clear decision, 29-28, clear for Ikram. Moving on, fourth fight on the card, second fight on the main card, sorry. We've got Bobby Green, Tony Ferguson. This is great matchmaking. It's a legends fight in the division. Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, they've both been around for ages. Ferguson's fought the who's who, really, is like Chandler, Diaz, Gaethje, um, Barboza, Cowboy, RDA, Kevin Lee. He's fought everyone. Um, Anthony Pettis, like just the wars that he's been in as well. Obviously, losses to Gaethje, Benil, Oliveira, unfortunate Chandler, Diaz. He's been on the slide recently, so I think that's kind of where this fight come from. I think the UFC, they look at it as like, okay, we're not feeding you to some up and comer. Bobby Green is showed his ceiling, lost to Fiziev, got KO'd by Doba. Like he's that just outside the top 15 guy, but still a really fun fighter and someone that everyone loves to watch as well. So I think depending on this, like, oh, Ferguson's not in a good place. Let's be honest. The 5-fight loss streak, just got arrested for drunk driving. It's tough for Tony, but still, I think this is as almost as good as you'll get in terms of a winnable fight. Ferguson can win this fight. It really depends on how he's been training, what that's been like, but how much he's been focused on his career or whether he's just gone screw it, fuck it. I'm there. I'll fight for money. I'll stay in the UFC, but I'm not taking this seriously. I hope that's not the case. I hope he's really motivated to get that win, get back on track, win and retire. If he wins this fight, just retire, please. Tony, I know you're not going to see this, but like, win this fight and retire, mate. Go out on top. Go out with a win. Don't be that guy. Don't be that BJ Penn who loses 8 times and just has your legacy tarnished, really. Like, if he wins, which I hope he does, I'm not predicting him to, but I really hope he does. I'd like to see him retire, call it a day on a stacked card, on the main card, against another legend, Bobby Green. Um, but I am going to pick Bobby Green, and I'm going to go by decision for him. I think if you really look at it, you go Green's quicker, Green's fresher, Green's taken less damage in his career. Tony Power's close. Tony probably's got better cardio. Obviously, the Diaz fight wasn't a good look. That was a welterweight, short turnaround after the Chandler knockout. But um, Tony at altitude, man, that's the factor. If we see that, obviously the skill set of Prime Tony will not be back. That we've seen that time and time again. But if he can have that cardio like we saw in that RDA fight in Mexico, and if he just, even if with bad technique, even if he just pushes a pace on Green, even if he's shit, even if he doesn't look good, if he can just push a pace on Bobby Green, he could. That's his way to win. If we're being honest, he won't knock him out. I doubt he'll submit him. Green has takedown defense for the most part, unless you're Islam Makhachev. Um, but I see it being a striking match. I see it being a fun fight. I think Green didn't look good. Did not look good in his last fight, obviously against Jared Gordon, ending in the headbutt. He was winning, but he was getting hit by Gordon. That's Jared Gordon. Like, that's not a elite fighter. Like, that's not that guy. That's a guy that beat Paddy Pimblett and made us realize that he was not good. But it's not like Gordon looked good in that fight either. Like, you're getting hit by Gordon. You're getting hit by a guy who should be fighting at featherweight, and you're getting stunned by him. Obviously, Green's got a decent chin for the most part, unless you drew over fighting him. But I just think Green is quicker, fresher. I think he'll weather any kind of punches that Tony lands. Tony's still got those elbows. Still, if he gets back to those, if he really fights to his strengths, I can see him winning. I guess, see him winning, but I'm just going to go with Green. It's been quicker, just outlanding Ferguson to a 30-27 decision. And I think that's the best case scenario. Win or lose for Tony, I think you just retire. Unless you're going to get like a Nick Diaz fight, maybe. But apart from that, just don't don't keep going. 6 fights if he loses this. 6 fights is enough. We don't need to see more than that. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna go Bobby Green by decision. Moving on, we got the main card opener, Kevin Holland versus Michael Chiesa. Interesting matchmaking, relatively straightforward kind of path. Kevin Holland, you kind of see that now. He got the treatment. He took Hamzat on short notice. Badass move for that. Like BMF Holland. He's one of those guys as well with Dustin and Justin. He's that guy. Take anyone really. Obviously got smoked by Hamzat, but it's Hamzat again. Then he fought Wonderboy as well, kind of fake retired for a bit. Said he wanted the top guy. He got it. He lost. Still looked good in that fight though. Still like had moments. Won the first round. Hurt Wonderboy as well. Rocked him in the first round, but broke his hand in the fight and obviously got pieced up for the rest of it. But it's Wonderboy again. Like top strikers in the UFC. Wonderboy is that guy. He's 40 and still looked that good. Obviously then we bounced back with the knockout win over Ponzinibbio. Looked good, not great, but looked good in that fight. Dropped him with that back fist, and then obviously finished him later in the fight. I think he'll win this fight. I'm picking him to win. I think I'll pick him to win by TKO. Actually, I think Chiesa is a grappler, so that's obviously a worry when you're fighting Holland. But I think Holland has improved. I think Holland, he's young enough. He's making improvements in his game, and I think we saw it, like he got demolished by Hamza, but even the scrambles, even the roll in the Hamza fight, the Granby rolls, he was stuffing takedowns. He was flowing with him, got subbed obviously, but there's a vast difference between Hamza Chimaev and Michael Chiesa in all senses of martial arts. Chiesa, year and a half off ish, coming off the loss to Sean Brady. Again, Sean Brady has just got it kind of exposed by Bilal Muhammad in the striking. Remember the decision, respectfully. But he did get finished. Brady got finished in that fight somehow. Still didn't get knocked down. Bilal's got pillow hands. But got finished regardless, froze up, Brady did. But he beat Chiesa. So Brady was that guy, he was a prospect. He beat Chiesa. And now Chiesa had a fight booked against Li Jingliang. Got cancelled. Lee got injured, had a back injury. That was on the same card as Holland versus Ponzinibbio. But yeah, that year and a half off worries me for Chiesa. He's not a young guy. He's got his job at ESPN on the desk. He's doing well there. I don't think he's a full-time fighter, if I'm being honest. I think he's got good grappling, but Holland is a black belt in BJJ. His jiu-jitsu is good. His wrestling isn't the best, but this isn't Chiesa is not Brunson or Vittori or um Thiago Santos. Like Chiesa's not that guy. Like he was a lightweight, obviously big lightweight, moved up to welterweight, moved up to welterweight. That's his division, and he looked good when he moved up. But I forget how old he is. He's in his 30s, not young 30s either, mid 30s, I believe. Um, and I think Holland will. I think he'll get taken down, but I think he'll have an offensive guard. I think we saw against Jacare, knocked him out with a fucking back fist off his back. That was mad. So he's got an active guard. He throws up. He'll throw up subs. He'll maybe throw some elbows off his back. I think he's that long, lanky build. Can be tough for defending takedowns. I think that's where he struggles. But it can be good in terms of the jiu-jitsu and in terms of the leveraging and really having those long legs to shoot up triangles, cut angles as well. So I think I see Chiesa taking him down, but I see Holland getting back up. I don't see Chiesa finishing him. Holland showed resistance against Hamzat. Obviously made him work for the dash choke finish that he got. But Chiesa, I don't think he's that great. Like he's good. He'll be out of the top 15 soon. A loss here, maybe retire, maybe another one, go out on a win maybe. But I think Holland will stuff most of the takedowns. When he gets back up, I think It's not even close on the feet. On the feet, it's Holland by a mile. Chiesa doesn't have a bad chin, but he doesn't have like a Vittori granite chin either. I think Holland will piece him up on the feet when he stuffs the takedowns, and I think as soon as he gets up, he's going to work on the stand up. I think again, it's the same with all of these fights. I'm not going to keep mentioning the altitude. It's not like one of them is way better cardio than the other. They've both got decent, like both got good cardio. Realistically, we saw Holland go long with Wonderboy when he was injured, but I see him just piecing up Chiesa on the feet and getting a TKO. I'm going to say in the third round as well. It's a fun fight though, or it's a fun fight if it goes the way I think it will. If it goes Chiesa's way, it'll be a grapple, lay and pray fest. Which fair play if Chiesa's got to do what he needs to do to win, that's what he'll do. But I'm back in Holland. So that's the main card done. We got two prelims announced as well. Stephen Thompson and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Sorry, my bad. Stephen Thompson versus Michel Pereira. It's Derrick Lewis versus de Lima. Messing this up now. But yeah, Stephen Thompson versus Michel Pereira was meant to be on the 289 card in Canada. Got pushed back. We still don't know why. Haven't been told that. So it's basically a month and a half delay on this fight. It was announced for longer than, like, quite a bit before it was scheduled to happen anyway. So both guys had a good camp. Good fight on a prelim as well. This card's stacked, man. I can't say enough about it. I was picking Wonderboy before. I'm still picking him unless we find out that he suffered some bad injury or something, and that's why it had to get cancelled or postponed. I don't see myself changing that pick. I'm pretty confident. I think Wonderboy said it himself. Thompson said it himself. He said he doesn't want the grapplers. He wants. He's not gonna get. He's not gonna get a belt. We know it. He knows it. He just wants. But he's not done either. He's not done, and he's still one of the best strikers in the division. So I see him just being so much better than Pereira on the feet. That's wild stuff. The backflips, the tornado, the capoeira stuff. It's not going to work on Thompson. He's a quality, high-level karate kickboxer. He knows what he's doing on the feet. It's like there's power, sure, but Holland's a better technical striker than Pereira, in my opinion. And Pierre, like Ponzinibbio decision. He's got the KOs, obviously, but against lower level competition, he's very much like a highlight reel made up of just unranked fighters. Like, no one on his highlight reel you look at and go, yeah, that's a really solid win, especially with a knockout. Like, he's got good wins. He's 15th, I believe, in the rankings. Yeah, he's 15th. Um, I just think, yeah, the wild stuff isn't going to work, to be honest, I don't think. I see Wonderboy just piecing him up. It's a three-rounder, favours Wonderboy easily. Wonderboy's well conditioned for a striking match. Periera could approach the grappling aspect, but I doubt it. Doesn't. It would be more through strength, not actual skillful takedowns. So yeah, I've got Wonderboy clear 30-27, maybe even 30-26 decision. Periera doesn't get hurt heaps. But I think the wild stuff, if he approaches a fight against Stephen Thompson and tries to make it a capoeira fight or a dancing contest, if we're being honest, at altitude as well, he's gonna gas. He's gonna gas quickly. Like we saw in that as fight as well, like other fights, that it's cool to watch and it's so fun to watch and we love it, but doing backflips in a fight is not effective. This is not a This is not the Karate Kid movie. This is not some like martial arts movie. This is a real fight, and he will gas out if he does that. If he's doing all these jumps off the cage and shit, he's gonna gas. He's gonna gas. So I'm taking Wonderboy. Um, yeah, taking Wonderboy. All right, last fight that's been announced on the prelims. We got Derrick Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. It's a good. I like this for Lewis. I like this for Lewis. De Lima is not good if I'm going to say it quite frankly. He's an unathletic, slow, fat heavyweight who wins fights via cage control. If we're being honest, cage control and leg kicks and some jabs. He's not a technical fighter. He's not a wrestling force to be um, that can't be reckoned with. He like he's average. He's an average fighter, and I know Derrick Lewis is not that good either. But the power difference is vast. Derrick Lewis, the last thing to go is your power. We all know it, especially at heavyweight. He's the Black Beast. He's still got that power. He's still knocked out Volkov. He's still knocked out Lewis. So he's still knocked out Dorcas. He's still knocked out um many guys. Like he's got KOs. We know it. Like he knocked out Blades. Knocked out Curtis Blades with an uppercut. Flatlined him. He woke up in a hospital. Like he's got power for days. And I see the fact that I like this for Lewis because it's not a grappling force. It's not a Spivak. It's not an absolute ballistic missile shooter. It's not an absolute tank like Pavlovich. That was a horrible fight for him. It's not a technical striker like Garn. It's not even a fellow brawler like Ty. Like the Ty fight was just fun. And Derek Lewis ranked number 3 at the time, and he lost to Ty by elbow. Sick to watch, just flatlined him with the elbow. Sad for Lewis, but for Ty that was great. Um, but it's not like what is De Lima's strength like in this fight? How's he gonna win? Like he's not gonna just absolutely demolish Lewis in the grappling, and I don't see him being a better striker than Lewis. Even if he's like minorly better, that power is just there, and I just think Lewis will just empty it in the first and get a KO. So I'm taking Derek Lewis first round knockout. So yeah, I think that'll be a good moment for him. Needs to get back on the horse, back on the high horse. He's coming off what is it, 3 losses in a row. Yeah, Pavlovich, and Spivak before that Garn loss as well. In between, he had the win against Dorcas. So 4 out of his last 5 losses. Really good for him to get a win. Have a great post-fight moment, a great highlight reel. Matt Brown recently equaled his record with the 13 knockouts, so I reckon he can take that record back in the meantime and get a highlight reel knockout with an overhand right or an uppercut. Maybe as De Lima shoots in for a takedown, or just that overhand right, that just bomb that he got Volkov with. And even if he's gassed, he's still got power. We saw it in the Volkov fight. He was cooked. 10 seconds to go and just dinks him. Just dinks him. Absolutely flatlines him. Put him out and had one of the best post-fight moments that we've ever seen. I had to knock that Russian motherfucker out, making us look bad on the news and shit, you know? You were saying this, so it was fucking awesome. I love that guy. But yeah, I'm backing him to get the knockout. So that's it. Stacked card is great news. Is really great news that we've got. Been a little bit stale. Like we got Dern versus Hill, terrible fight night. A week break. Kai versus Albazi is a very good fight night main event. Rest of the card's decent. Like you got Malaki versus Guram Kutadladze. Then you got 289, better card with Oliveira versus Dariush on it, but not the best. Nunes versus Aldana, like it's whatever. Wonderboy versus Pereira was obviously meant to be on that card, would have made it much better. Obviously, like got good fights on there, like Imavov versus Curtis, Dorcas versus Roundtree Jr., Schnell versus Dvorak. Oliveira versus Dariush is the main event. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. That's the best fight on the card by a mile. Despite it won't sell buys. Then what else you got? You got Vittori Cannonier Classic Apex Fight Night. We got what's after that? Emmett versus Poirier is good. June, that's very good. That we like that. Strickland versus Magomedov, good. Bit weird. 2-8, and then we're stacked. Then we got 290. Volk versus Rodriguez, great stuff. Hom versus Bueno Silva, man. Like, they just had to kill the vibe. They had RDA versus Luca on that fucking card, and they pushed it back and replaced it with Home versus number 10, Marabona Silva. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Then we got London, and then we got this. It's a great card, great lineup, and yeah, stacked. Really exciting. Let me know what you guys' predictions are in the comments. Drop a like, and we'll see you in the next one. I'll talk about Sean O'Malley versus Aljo. I didn't get to it in this video because I've taken up 45 minutes of your time. If you sit through it, much appreciated. And then obviously Zhang Wei Li versus Lema. So we'll talk about that in the next video. But alright, see you guys.